I also believe in the power of small teams, right? So while I was seeing like companies build and build and build and build the engineering teams, we were extremely selective about who we were bringing on into our team.
How do you ensure that like you are so successful in life? So how do you keep your ego back home?
So you've had an incredible career leading up to being an entrepreneur. And I love asking this question to a lot of entrepreneurs because why did you jump off the bus? Good evening, everybody. Welcome to a very special episode of Building in India. This is a podcast we're building for all first generation founders who are building and scaling up companies in India. And today we have a very special and very well-known guest. Naya, welcome to the show. And I think a lot of people already know about you because you've been in the startup ecosystem for a really long time, building businesses, selling businesses, creating large outcomes. And now you're building the next one. You're on the next 0 to 1 journey. Would love to know about your journey, what drives you to be an entrepreneur, and we would love to hear more about what are the businesses that you're building.
Okay, so first of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's absolutely wonderful, and it's great to know that folks from Bangalore are coming to Bombay to meet interesting people.
He's from Patna.
He's from Patna, okay. Um, no, it's been great. I mean, of course, you carbon dated me. I've been in the ecosystem for about now, what, 9.5, 10 years. My first company was a company called Baby Chakra, grew to be a very large maternal and child health platform, built off the premise and pillars of community. First, we at our peak, we had about 24 million mothers, 10,000 doctors, highly engaged, crazy retention curves, crazy, like you're talking about the growth hoax, viral referrals, all of that. I've seen all of that. Very, very amazing journey. Built out baby care products soon after at Baby Chakra through a community co-creation process. Our company, Baby Chakra, got acquired by MyGlam, joined MyGlam as a co-founder, built it out to the Good Glam Group. I exited last year in June.
Congrats on that.
Yeah, thank you. And now I'm building Edition, which is the newest venture. We're literally on a 0 to 1 journey. I just hired our fifth team member, actually, just yesterday. So very, very, very new. What we are building at Edition very quickly is it's a new age consumer electronics brand where we are reimagining through design seamless tech and better for you propositions how we as humans interact with the daily devices that power our lives, right? So everything from your home devices, your kitchen devices to your personal care devices, can we completely reimagine them for modern living, for modern lives?
Awesome. Now, if we were just predate that a little bit more. So you've had an incredible career leading up to being an entrepreneur. And I love asking this question to a lot of entrepreneurs because why did you jump off the bus? Because I remember going in telling my parents that, hey, I have an MBA and I can do this stuff and whatever, but I'm going to become an entrepreneur. And they're like, are you nuts? Do you have that moment in your life? So what was it that led you to that moment that you wanted to do things on your own? And how did that shape out?
So, I wouldn't say it was a very natural thing growing up. And you heard me yesterday, right, when we were chatting as well. I didn't grow up saying that entrepreneurship is even a tenable or a feasible or even like a credible career option. I grew up in Calcutta. My parents were in the government. We were often told that, oh, if you don't study hard, we'll either marry you off or, you'll have to set up some shop somewhere. Like that was literally the worst options.
Or if you study hard, you'll go work for IBC or the Taj.
Did you study hard?
I didn't study hard. I was a terrible student. I think I've made it, I've shared it now. I feel okay sharing it. I was a terrible student. My sister was an amazing student. She's 4 years older to me, studied in the same school. Everybody loved her. Everybody hated me. I was a very deviant child. Yeah, very deviant child. I think, I don't know, some things just worked, I guess. I got very lucky along the way. So to cut a long story short, I think
Let's be humble. Or actually, let's be honest. Going to HBS and working at McKinsey is not being lucky.
But I hear you, but I think it's actually a bit of luck, and I'll tell you why. So NLS, I wouldn't have made it to any decent undergrad in India because I didn't give my accounts exam in ISC. Like literally, I was a terrible student. Please, like, let me emphasize that one more time, right? But Endless had an entrance exam. And that required like basic math, logic, legal reasoning, logical reasoning, English. Like, okay, that I know how to do. And I prepared because I knew I wouldn't make it anywhere else. And I made it. In fact, I came pretty high up in the rankings all over India. So big surprise, very pleasant surprise to me. And I made it there. And you know what ended up happening was Endless was an amazing experience overall. Like really bright kids from all over the country, different perspectives on what keeps one spiky and successful versus this whole thing about sir padhai karo and be, successful. But I actually had an offer from a law firm in London called Clifford Chance. Before I was graduating. And McKinsey had come to campus. I didn't know what a McKinsey was. Like law school, nobody knows what a McKinsey is, right? I'm talking about 2007. But they were offering free pizza. And literally, this is the story.
This reminds me of how we used to go to Goldman Sachs because we used to get free wine.
Yeah, exactly.
Champagne, yeah.
So they were offering free pizza. And I was like, okay, great, I'm hungry. Like, let's go check it out at least. And literally, this is the story. So I show up there and I'm blown away by the presentation because they talk a lot about of course, the large companies they work with. They equally talk about the work they do with government, with foundations, the impact they create. A lot of healthcare work was being done. And I was like, okay, this is really cool. And so I decided to apply. And I apply. And of course, you prepare also for the problem solving, the case studies.
So the ROI for them is free pizza, results, and application.
Yeah, it does. I think it worked well.
Yeah.
And so then I made it, right? But I'm telling you, it's a lot about just. I literally could have gone to Nagar Bhabi and had my bun maska with Maggie, or I could have had that pizza that day. Like my life would have been very different. I would have been in London probably, making a lot more money probably. But I mean, that is really like, that is life, right? I'll give you the other example, right? When I was applying for to HBS. And, by then, McKinsey makes a lot of things very normal for you also. That's the other thing about a peer group, right? Peer groups make you feel like, yeah, Harvard. I remember like was in NLS, I used to write like I used to have like this thing on my study table, dream schools to go to, Oxford, Harvard, Cambridge, like I used to put on this Columbia, like I used to put on those names. And when I went to McKinsey, it was very normal. Yeah, my seniors went to HBS. Of course, you can go to HBS, right? And the only problem was that, just to remind everybody, it was still a very measly BA at McKinsey. I didn't have that much money to go to HBS. And so, again, I heard from somebody about the Fulbright Fellowship. And that's when I applied. And that's when I got a fellowship to go to HBS. Again, I genuinely, I'm speaking from the heart, I don't know if I could have afforded the HBS education without that scholarship. So, just constantly emphasizing, we talk a lot about, oh, you're so capable. It's actually a lot of luck, a lot of serendipity, and a lot of putting yourself out there.
Yeah. This is more the reason why my dad was astounded when I decided to be an entrepreneur, because I took a large loan to go to business school. And no, but it's you're right, because so that grunt work that you did at McKinsey taught you a lot of business and exposure and how you look at fundamental businesses. And then you went to HBS, and then you had this whole, I mean, we always talk about business schools saying that's that 1 or 2 years that's changed our lives.
Yeah.
So that you got that exposure from people who want to rule the world, people who want to run companies, build companies. And that's probably resulted in that seed that led to your first company, right?
Yeah. So in fact, when I applied to HBS as well, I actually, even then my essay was about coming back to India to build a healthcare company out. So it was very, very clear that I wanted to come back and be an entrepreneur. I think what gave me more conviction, and I think where my mind was always at, was about this whole thing about impact versus profit and scale. But I think in HBS, I really started internalizing that when you're building businesses, especially in places like India, you're actually creating anyway something extremely impactful for the economy, for people, for your team, for the consumers you're serving. And, we talk a lot about these care gaps / infrastructure gaps. That's what you're doing as an entrepreneur. That's where the maximum arbitrage actually lies for you as an entrepreneur building in India today. So I think that is where that's where the conviction went to the next level. And I moved back to India. And I fortunately didn't have a loan. So I could come back to India and I could build.
Yeah.
And that was my first company.
So if we were to just go back to, I had a professor who used to teach a very interesting course called The First 100 Days. If you were to go back to the first 100 days of Baby Chakra, What did you think as a founder was the toughest thing that you never imagined jumping into that venture?
I think I didn't account for the fact. So again, like just to caveat and contextualize, I just come up from the US. In the US, you had these stories of your Airbnb founders who were designers building large product companies, right? It's a very different product culture
Hmm.
in the US. You don't necessarily have to be only from tech or be an engineer.
Two design guys and one engineer. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, you can just be like anybody and you could be building in tech, right?
Right.
And that was the norm. And so coming back to India, I think the one big question was constantly asked is that, well, you're not an
Right.
engineer. You are
Yeah.
fundamentally, and I wasn't even a lawyer. I didn't study that much law. But like, what are you really? And why do you think? And listen, it's not unfair. Let's be honest. But so that was a big challenge initially. And that's where I think people like, for instance, like, the ecosystem I was able to build around me or founders who were building in tech and therefore could give me great referrals of people who they knew would work with me.
Hmm.
And we actually built out a pretty impressive engineering driven company at the end of the day, right? We had, our product team was considered best in class. Our engineers were considered best in class. They've actually, after we kind of dissolved Baby Chakra into this whole Good Glam construct, some people left because whatever, they wanted to move on to doing other things. They're all leading large engineering teams in some of the top tech companies in India today, right? So that is the kind of folks we were able to build and nurture and then create. In fact, so much so that like our product was, Baby Chakra was a consumer tech product, right? The app was recognized by Google globally multiple times. It was recognized on Facebook and when it's still Facebook and then Meta, but Facebook and Meta and Google developer showcases globally, right? We were winning like the Android Play Store. Like it was, I met Mark Zuckerberg because he was like, "What are you guys doing here in India with Baby Chakra? Like,
going up like
this is insane.
going
Like,
up,
what
yeah.
are you doing, right? And how are you doing this?" So I think there was a lot.
You had about 25 million,
Yeah, like
million.
yeah, I mean, it was crazy. It was across, of course, app and
Sure.
our MWeb. We were doing machine learning, we were doing predictive algos. Like we were doing a lot of stuff which wasn't normally done, right?
Hmm.
And I think it made people understand that. And by the way, I also believe in the power of small teams, right? So while I was seeing like companies build and build and build and build the engineering teams, we were extremely selective about who we were bringing on
Hmm.
into our team. And therefore, you could see like every person kind of really play to peak potential. And this whole sort of divide that you see between product managers and engineers and like having like a UI, UX, it was all actually like the engineers were actually picking up calls and talking to consumers and saying what is broken in this experience.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I think it was a lot of like first principles, counterintuitive thinking
Mhm.
on how to build teams. And it really worked for us.
But that was also very interesting because you were solving a personal problem
Not when I was building Baby Chakra, I wasn't expecting.
you wasn't expecting. So you had to literally go out and do consumer research at scale.
Yeah.
How did you do that? How did you go about that process?
You know, so
Again, you came from McKinsey, you're a trained lawyer. How did you just do this off the fly? I mean, like,
So I'll tell you, like, I think it was interesting because at that point in time, I was not a mother.
Hmm.
I was very newly married. So, like, children were far from my mind. But, it was interesting because I had worked in maternal and child health and McKinsey earlier.
okay.
And I had worked with, Foundation of the Gates Foundation, with EMRI, the 108 ambulance service. So we helped scale that from Hyderabad to 10 states.
Which is a Satyam. Yep.
Correct. Earlier Satyam Foundation initiative. So we've done a lot of MCH work.
Hmm.
And I remember like understanding, at least on very different contexts, how mother groups and how care groups and how Anganwadi Asha workers and how doctors and PHCs and all that operate. So that gave me some insight. But when you're looking and building for a very different context and paradigm and a digital platform, you have to understand that cohort very differently,
Hmm.
right? And for me, it felt like mothers, it's so weird, like I'm a mom of two now. But for me at that point in time, it felt like mothers were a different cohort, almost like a different species. And I remember
So you were you didn't have a bias, or you were very biased.
I didn't have a bias at
You
all
were not a
because I
bias,
didn't know what motherhood
Experienced,
meant.
yeah.
I didn't know what motherhood meant, right? And the only person I was seeing it play out with was my sister,
Hmm.
right? But like she was also like a very different, like she wasn't, maybe she was one kind of a persona in that large cohort,
Sure.
right? So I remember like my first, almost like what I did, I'll tell you, was at that point in time, I set up like a Facebook page. I called it Baby Chakra because I thought, okay, this babychakra.com is available as a domain name. Chalo, Baby Chakra is the name of the company. Literally. The heart, like I remember we were sitting and brainstorming. My then co-founder, he was there for about a year and then he had to move on. And my mom and I. And then mom's like, oh, what about this circle? And I was like, and a heart inside. Great. That was
I remember that's how I noticed you guys on Facebook way back in 2017, 18.
yeah, correct, right? So we just made a page, and then I had I sometimes I would post, sometimes I had this part-time freelancer, Shadan, in Delhi, who would post content related to moms and babies and parenting, and we'd see who's following and what is working, what's not. So that was my starting point to build the initial understanding of, and also initial user cohort. Then I'd message everybody personally on, and then that point in time, Facebook would allow messaging, right? Then we created a Baby Chakra Facebook group. Then I met people through that. And I met then through my sister's friends also. Some of them, fortunately, by then had some babies. So then I met them as well. And I would sit and I would wireframe with them. I mean, literally, it was a bit of an iterative process. So it took me some time to build my consumer cohorts out and understand the cohorts as well. But it was a very iterative process. So I would actually say that, choose obviously a co-founder extremely thoughtfully. Because, either, and if you don't find somebody who would be the right fit for you, actually do a solo founding journey if you need to. I think it's better versus having constant friction, constant second guessing, is the person working as hard as I am? Is the person trustworthy? Like, that's terrible. That's a terrible place to be in. As an entrepreneur, you're fighting and like just grappling with so many external facing battles. The last thing you want is an internal battle, right? Or a question of judgment and doubt. But when you do find somebody who's very complementary, and do look for complementary skills, that I think is a starting point. Because you don't want to experts, so-called, no one's expert, but like assuming like people who are
Very interesting. Sri mentioned the same thing about Harsh and Farooq.
yeah,
He said it's complementary skills so that
yeah.
you're in war together, you can rely on their judgment for that particular part of the...
Yeah. It has to be very complementary. And I think number two, I was just sharing with you earlier, right? I mean, what, for instance, I'm building edition out with VT, with Vyasa. What we both do is we have a maker checker approach, right? So we basically said, this is what I'm building as part of the company. This is what you're building in terms of the almost like work streams we're taking.
Sure.
And these are my work streams or your work streams. And as and when I reach a point of like some, almost like a launch period in my work stream, I want your eyes on it. So I'm the maker, you're the checker.
Sure.
You can give me your opinions. I will incorporate what I think makes sense. And then I will go ahead and launch anyway. And the responsibility is mine, the accountability is mine on what happens of it. So, and vice versa. I think that's really important. I think the third thing that has helped me in this particular time is that I'm 41. VD is 44, I think, 43, 44. He's going to kill me if he's younger.
He's almost the same age as me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to lower my age a bit, right?
So I think we've been through just like so much in life, right? I mean, like, we're not going to be sitting and like having like petty arguments about silly things, right? I mean, like, we're here to build.
Yeah.
I think the intent should be that are we both looking to build something big, category defining, meaningful, global, right? And I think the value system, and then like in the next level is, but are we doing with the same values, right? Like, we will not cut short certain processes that will take their time. And if those processes take too much time, then can we think about a plan B, right? If we're hiring people, are we making the right judgment calls in hiring them? We both will interview the person from a culture fit, from a, of course, technical fit, and then take a call on that person accordingly. So I think the value system, how we think about money, that's a very big part, right? Like, where are we allocating money? It is essentially a finite resource, right? So how do you allocate it thoughtfully? What do we think about just growth at all costs versus like a little bit of bootstrapping, product market fit, and then fundraising? All of these questions, right?
When did you realize that, hey, listen, what I'm building could be potentially not this big, but this big?
I think it happened when we started co-creating Baby Chakra products. And when we launched them, I've shared this story in public before, we had about 6 months of inventory. We launched on Amazon. We were sold out in like 5 days. And like, I have not seen, like, I had not seen it, obviously. I'm sure other people have, but like, I had the Amazon seller app on my phone. And my chief of staff was also like, had the seller app. And we were just like, what is happening? It was tuck, 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 like, products were getting sold. And in fact, then Amazon blocked us.
Yeah.
because they said this is a scam because it's they did.
So how did you get yourself unblocked?
I reached out to McKinsey Mafia.
But then McKinsey have.
I did. I reached out to somebody very senior at Amazon through the McKinsey network. I actually pinged on the McKinsey group saying, hey, like, can somebody help me? Someone senior at Amazon. And then this person came through who was very helpful. And he found out, he was like, yeah, this is what's happening. They think you're a scam. I'm like, we're not. Like, it's just people buying. What am I supposed to do?
Because that was because you had fundamentally built a good tenant in your community and people loved the value that you offered, that people just trusted you and started buying, right?
Yeah, I mean, people first of all trusted us.
Mm.
Even for people to join a community, to trust the brand and to trust the intent behind the brand, right? They trusted us, and I think it was super important to also honor that trust. So literally, by the time we launched Baby Chakra products, I was first of all extremely particular. I had a baby by then. I was pregnant earlier, and I had a baby. Arya was born, and whatever was being launched, I was using it. Arya was using it.
Mm.
It's very clear. So, and I'm not saying it just because, founders say, yeah, I've used it, but like literally there was like a no, like there was a very clear standard.
There was no middle ground. It's like, I'm going to use it. I'm going to be the advocate. It is, I believe in what I build.
And also, I think it's also the belief, it came from that feeling of impact, like our community deserves the best.
Mm.
Like, we will not settle.
Mm.
And people saw it. Like, and people had gone through the co-creation process, right? And it was really interesting. We were doing different things. It's like I'm talking about 2019, yeah. We actually had on our packs, right? We had photos of the mothers and doctors who'd helped us co-create. On our PDP pages, we had like a 3-4 liner on the background of the mother or the doctor who helped us co-create the product, right? Like, we had all of that. And that was very different at that point in time, right?
Sure.
Having like everybody was like putting in like photos of like a celebrity.
Hmm.
And here we had like pictures of real mothers.
Sure.
Like, what is happening?
Hmm.
And I do think that became almost like a case study for so many brands in India, which gives me so much joy. And now, and then we did something very interesting very early on. We used to, when we started doing performance marketing as well, we would use actually community reviews,
Sure.
right? And we would use those like real reviews of real
Mm.
moms using it, not creators. Like, we started building these things called mom stars, which actually were, now I realize they were like they became influencer marketing. We didn't know, like we were building all of this like 2015, 24, like what is influencers? Nobody knew a creator ecosystem.
Mm.
We were using real images of real product usage and doing performance marketing. Those ROAS and conversion rates were way high.
Crazy, right?
Crazy. Right? So we were like, this works. Chalo, usko lag-" Like, it was such a... So I think like this, and now it's become the norm.
Yeah.
You talk to Arjun after this, right?
Yeah.
Tell you, of course, use UGC content, right? It is a norm. We were doing all of this stuff before we knew it was the right thing to do. So, and that's what I love, right? I mean, I love the fact that we are able to create a paradigm
Mm.
and experiment while building with community, something that's totally
Yeah,
differentiated.
it's like even some of the large companies do it very differently. For example, if you look at Decathlon,
Yeah.
Decathlon doesn't use large global sports brand ambassadors. They use their community, they use the functionality of their products, the way the stores are set up. And it's a large brand.
Yeah.
And like you just said, you just create so many advocates and believers that they trust you.
Another thing I'll give you an example is that we launched this program called Label Padho Moms. So this actually came way below, and I think Revant and all have done a fantastic job on food labelings, right? But this is, I'm talking in 2019, right? When we were observing this behavior, that people are actually turning to read the ingredients in their baby care product. And we were like, kuch to chal raha hai yahan par.
Mm.
So we said, okay, let's launch a almost like a movement called Label Padho Moms. It was hashtag Label Padho Moms. Then my team came to my house. We shot a small video with
But
Arya.
how did you discover this insight that people actually...
It was there in the shops. No,
No,
That's
watching
the
the once the consumers,
consumers.
watching the consumers in the shop.
You see the consumers in shops. You're kind of sitting with them. You're co-creating with them. You understand their behaviors. And they were looking, they were picking up stuff and they were thinking like that. Like they would look at the back.
Mhm.
And then we launched also alongside. So we did this YouTube video, which went viral. We got, I think, even now, I think it's some 1.52 lakh views just organically. Then on Instagram, we had more than, I think, I don't even know, like some 5,000-10,000 posts, UGC posts on Label Padho Mom. It was crazy. It was really crazy. And then we launched at the same time a lexicon on babychakra.com, which was like a dictionary A, B, C, D to Z on all the toxins you find in your baby care products and where you can find them. So let's say X is found in your hand wash, right?
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, it should not be there in your baby's hand wash.
Right, right.
Or why is found in your, and the name of the toxin that's found in your baby's sunscreen. It shouldn't be there. So it was like, there was a lot of like just understanding where the community was headed mentally, emotionally, and with this latent need of what gap can we fill for them from an education perspective or from at least being a partner and ally to them.
But is this how you built trust at Baby Chakra? Because I think for you, trust really worked.
Yeah.
It took you from 1 to 10.
Yeah.
But is this, how did you build trust?
So I call this a lot about, again, like there's actually a cute, like formula I have for trust, but I won't go to
You're
that.
a consultant, so you can.
No,
you
but
can-
but I think broadly, if I were to think about it, there are 3 pillars of trust, right? One is, are you present at the points which I call watering holes, which is where the consumer is present, because we are present even subliminally. The familiarity builds trust.
Familiarity builds trust, yes.
Right? So that was one. The second is, are you present with people who they already trust? Doctors, experts, prenatal therapists, lactation consultants, right? Fellow moms, whatever. Peer moms, a little bit older in that journey. And the third, we started this very early, is that, is there a person behind the brand? Right? Is there a team behind the brand that they can trust? Like, because people trust people. What's the brand going to stand for, right?
Then this is the same problem I have with a lot of B2B old school companies. They would have a website. They would have no information in terms of who's running the business. And I tend to not trust them.
Of course. I mean, like, why would you, could be anybody, right?
It's like 5 years back, 10 years back, if you look at a lot of these B2B companies, services companies especially, the same cookie cutter website, these are the services that we offer. But hey, who is there? Do you have to go on LinkedIn and find out who's the owner of the company?
Yeah.
But yeah, you hit the nail on the head saying that.
So and we know this, I guess, in some sense, we all kind of know this, but we used to be very particular about that. So at every touch point, right, we'd ensure that one of these 3 pieces was 100% met. In fact, so much so, and we started something very interesting in the very beginning of Baby Chakra when we were doing the app. We went to doctors' clinics, and we knew that doctors wouldn't give us time of day. There were all these large pharma companies and these very well-funded baby center apps and all sitting outside, with enough to do with them, take them to foreign trips and all. We said, you won the Mom's Choice Award for the best gynac in Bangalore. And we gave them all a
Which
certificate.
is what a lot of the conferences do these days. Best manager.
So that is,
person,
yeah, they might do that today. But at that point in time, what we also did was we actually back it up with surveys. So we actually did surveys of our community and said, who are the doctors that you recommend? So when we went to the doctors, it wasn't just that you got this. We like, and Anita, Tanya, Sneha are all voted for you.
The real influence behind is brilliant.
And so that certificate actually will still find in a lot of clinics in Bombay and Bangalore, which is really interesting. I don't know, but it was really interesting. It was like a very reasonably priced, obviously, certificate with a frame. So we would just go give it, and they would actually tell their patients that I have been awarded. See, here is the certificate from. Like, it was a matter of pride. And I think it's just about, like, I don't know, is this Pilliko, but it's so much about human psychology, I guess. And just being like really thoughtful about what matters and why.
Right.
And that would then build trust, because somebody would come in and, like, the first piece, watering holes. Then you see it in your doctor's chamber, you're like, this is a brand I've seen it somewhere.
Correct.
Yeah. And the doctor tells you about it. Okay, that's the second piece. And thirdly, like, you go to the website or you go somewhere and you check it out. You're like, okay, here's a whole team's photo. Adds to the...
Right. I think we can talk about Baby Chakra forever, but maybe we should also talk about, so you, super successful founder. Now, does impact, now you're building another startup, does creating an impact still drives you, or now you're looking at something else?
Oh, very much drives me. So, I mean, the opportunity I see with Edition is that, see, we're living our lives daily in a certain way, right? And the devices that power our lives daily are frankly so suboptimal. They were made in the 1990s, right? I mean, they're all, like I was telling him earlier, they're all commodity products. Like, what is the difference between like X brand versus Y brand? Nothing, because they go to the same manufacturer and they pick it up and they import it or whatever they do.
Right.
How we, and by the way, the other piece is that when you're trying to pay for products that give you less damage on hair, on skin, on better nourishment outcomes, safer materials, you pay a crazy premium.
It's super-
I mean, look at what's happening with Dyson. You're saying, oh, it damages my hair less, so I will pay 40,000 rupees for a no damage hair dryer or a low damage hair dryer. That's not fair.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, it's not fair. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring these daily use devices, first of all, upgrade them, make them really interesting and relevant from a brand
Functional, yeah.
perspective, from a design perspective, from a functional perspective. Understand that we all live in nuclear families, we live in compact homes. You know, we need like smaller devices that power our lives versus these large Garangaton ones that were made for Midwest homes way back in the 90s. That's true. That's what
So you're basically contextualizing the person's life to what it is at this point in time.
Correct.
And the devices
Yeah.
and how
and
do
how
they
do you make them
how do they basically experience each other?
exactly? And how do you
But-
make a person's life, every individual's life, better for it?
Mm.
Right? So it's impact. It is impact at a very different level.
Mhm.
Is what I would say here, right? Which is that every touch point you have, is it giving you better care? Is it giving you better nourishment? Is it giving you better sleep? Is it giving you better rest? Is it giving you better? It's so many different variants to this. So I guess now this is like my third rodeo in some sense, right? So
Yeah.
I'm excited about the mission we have with this.
So,
Awesome.
so that brings me to my next question. You're used to doing things very fast. And
Is that
you-
correct?
Yes.
Yes, she did mention that. And I mean, looking at her career, and suddenly you are in that 0 to 1 where you have to make very measured choices because you're essentially trying to reinvent the way people deal with devices and all of that. So it's probably that initial journey is not going to be as fast as you would expect. Does that pull back the real?
I've had to learn patience all over again. I've really had to learn patience all over again. And I'm probably better for it. But I also know, you know, and I'm very clear. And I've said this before, something my team has heard ad nauseum. Sometimes you have to go slow to go fast, right? And eventually we will go fast. Right now we're going slow purposefully. We're setting the base, we're setting the foundations, we're hiring people very thoughtfully. And we're also thinking through the product very thoughtfully. Because when we launch, we'll need to go really fast. So let's set the base right. And it's fine.
So in Bangalore analogy, it is slow cooking to build a Rameshwaram cafe. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, it is probably not natural for you, considering your experience, but you know that this initial grind is a lot of patience,
It is.
and that will get you to that launch phase where, with distribution, you have to get manufacturing, quality, customer success, all of those pillars right.
With a lot of patience, also with a complete lack of ego. Because
But how do you ensure that, like, you are so successful in life? So how do you keep your ego back home?
actually Sandeep would say, my husband would say that it is back home and the ego is a good one. No, I'm just joking, but I'm kidding. Sorry, I couldn't
We are not
resist.
going to edit
I
this part.
couldn't resist. No, I'm kidding. But like, honestly, I think being an entrepreneur is, genuinely speaking, a very
Humbling experience.
it is very every entrepreneur will tell you that. And like, what are we? We are enablers.
Mm.
You know, we're enablers. We like to call ourselves creators, but we're enablers of creation. And you're creating for somebody, right? So you might as well, if you're creating for somebody, you might as well understand what they need, right? And that's where you have to let go of some of your initial bias, some of your initial, but you go in obviously with a thesis. You go in with a hypothesis, saying that
Right.
this is what I think they will need, and you test it, and you learn, and then you refine. I think over the last many months, there's been obviously a lot of evolution in the way we've been thinking through the company, through the business, through the product journey, so many things. So yeah, and eventually, like, what will I do with my ego here? Kya hoga? I mean, if I just stick to my ego, then no, genuinely, what's going to happen? It's going to not do me
Any favors?
any favors.
So if you were not a corporate employee, if you were not an entrepreneur, what would you be doing?
I'd be a product designer.
Vyasa would love that answer.
He knows this. I actually applied to NID twice.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. And then both times I would make it through the main entrance exams. And I'd go to the psychometric evaluation in the beautiful Paldi campus. And my father, very patient father, would accompany me each time. And both times, one was after the Gujarat riots, one was after the Gujarat earthquake, but I would still show up there. And the psychometric evaluators would say, you know what, you're cut out for entrepreneurship. And I'd be like, what the hell is entrepreneurship?
Wow,
I didn't-
seriously.
Yeah.
And this was the same time that you applied to NLS. So this is
Yeah.
after-
Same time.
wow.
I didn't want to go to law school. I mean, I didn't have an option. I just applied because, again, like law school didn't have a marks, like,
Sure.
yeah, whatever. It was entrance exam based, right? So my heart was actually in product design.
Wow. So you've come back to your first calling.
Mm.
Well, that's brilliant.
One final question we ask everyone. Any book that has really influenced your life?
I mean, it's always the hard thing about hard things, right? I mean, I think everybody's read it
Yeah.
a few times. When I was very young, I remember, I mean, yeah, I think all these, like, it's a regular books. I don't think it's anything,
Anything great you have read lately?
not really, not really. I actually have been trying to catch up on my reading. I've been a bit lax. Yeah, I think it's a 0 to 1 journey. I've not had time to,
I think maybe it's time to write one then.
to what?
Write one book. For
It's not time to write a book, not yet. No. In fact, it's interesting you say that because I think that would be hubris. I don't think I've achieved that much yet. I need to achieve something before I write something. Wait.
Wow. That's super cool.
Yeah, as in conclusion, Naya, this was a wonderful conversation. Thanks for taking the time. But
I know you did a fantastic job.
yeah, you've been a
Oh, thank you.
fantastic guest. Thank you so much for taking the time out. And I'm sure all the builders out there and the first generation founders would absolutely love it. In closing, I would like to just give our thanks to our location partners, Beehive. These guys are pretty big in Bangalore, and now they're expanding into your home city as well.
And it's a gorgeous
Oh, it's-
office, huh?
A great office.
Great location.
Thank you so much, Beehive guys. Appreciate it.